Hello everyone, my name is Trevor Cochran and I'm here today to give a brief demonstration on our new project, which is a Minesweeper, and what happened with the old project and how it finally flipped into a Minesweeper project. So with our old project, we wanted to create a turn-based strategy game, which was similar to chess but more like Forge of Empires, where there's two sides on each side of the board, one being the user side and one being the enemy side. And each side traverses the board and attacks each other. And the first side to go down wins the game. And we were going to do something like that with a medieval background and have different types of characters, a swordsman, spearsman, archer, and things of that nature. About 2 weeks in, we decided to go into a different direction, into a puzzle game called Minesweeper. Now with Minesweeper, we didn't want it to be a part of a larger project and have various things in the game like microtransactions and stuff like that. It was going to be a self-contained project for the entertainment of the user. Moving on with team contributions, with documentation, each part was split to pretty much everybody does 2 parts of the documentation. So I would do like 3 and 4, Levany would do 6 and 7, Brandon would do 5 and 4, and things of that nature. With the coding, everybody pretty much helped out with the old project, doing things like making the character class, making the game class, adding images to the characters so that it appears on the screen when you run the project. With the new project, it was more research based for us. Levany did the brunt of the project, coding the GUI with the J-frame and the images being put into the project so that the mines and numbers appear on the screen when you run the project and make it flow nicely when you do that. Document convention is pretty much straightforward. We didn't use any special font or anything to do this software requirement documentation. We just wrote it with the regular font that was already there. So with user classes and characteristics, it is pretty much just if you're a puzzle gamer interested in RPG games, or you just want to play an entertaining game, this one's for you. And all you really need to know is that how to play a regular Minesweeper game, just with an additional RPG aspect to it. Operating environment is a GUI based on Swing. The user's hardware platform needs to have some sort of software that could run Java with the RIDHVL engine that Zach created, or uses, excuse me. And that's pretty much it with the operating environment. Assumptions and dependencies pretty much comes down to what will happen if I do this in the game. What happens if I click this button and nothing works in the game? What happens if it doesn't start up? Would be the assumptions and dependencies, and that's kind of what we went with when documenting this type for this section. The user interface is going to be a standard interface with which we will contain a 5x5 table of hexagons. It will contain a taskbar, which will have time and things like that. It will contain squares where the user clicks on it. It will appear either as a number or mine. And that's pretty much what it comes down to with the user interface. So the class diagram is pretty much a UML diagram, going from top to bottom. The top being the most important class in the project, and the bottom being the least important class. And so as you scroll down here, you have the game class, and then the section below the game class is the variables that will be declared within this class. So you have JButtons charged, JPanels, and things like that, the image icons. And then below right here are the methods like set width of board, set height of board, all the methods that will implement this in the project. And then this class will be called in main, and which is why this class is one of the most important classes in the project. Is because main will call this, and this class will be responsible for populating the board, the 5x5 hexagon board, with images of mines and numbers. So when the user clicks on a square, it appears as either a mine or a number. And the play game function would be responsible for the bread and butter of that. Scrolling down to the game board class, the game board class is self-explanatory. It will create the game board, the 5x5 board that will appear when the user runs the Minesweeper game. And it declares variables right here. It has methods right here that will implement that process in creating the game board. So moving on down here, you have the cell class, and the cell class is where the functionality is created for the mines and the numbers. And that's how they will function within the Minesweeper game, so that when I move my mouse and I click on a square, it will appear as a number or mine. And then of course you have the main class, and the main class will run the game play game function or method, which will in turn run the Minesweeper game. And then as you go through the documentation, you have the responsibility of each class, which pretty much explained in the 4.1 class diagram. But as you can see, it's written in documentation form right here. So with features, we have a few features within the Minesweeper game. You have levels here. The difficulty will increase for each level. So we're gonna have, an easy level, and then we're gonna have a, a medium and expert level for the Minesweeper game. And down turn will get harder and harder, and it will be harder to predict which square contains the mine. When it comes to related user classes, it's up to the user. I mean, if the user wants to play on any of these difficulties, they would have to select it. And all users have access to the feature. It's not limited to behind a paywall or something. With the functional characteristics, it's pretty much just, the game will allow the user to play on each difficulty, and that's pretty much where it comes down to that. With the non-functional characteristics, it comes down to the user being able to complete the beginner level. If the user cannot finish the beginner level, the user will not be able to play the intermediate and expert levels. It'll be as simple as that. And here's the testing for the Minesweeper game, and as you can see, we ran the test for the game board and the methods that were used for the game board, and those passed with 100%. If you scroll down here, we did some more tests and method tests, and those passed as well. So when it comes on to database, data storage, and schema, we're not using any databases right now or any external files at this point. When it comes to formats and schema, our program is going to be randomly generated. So it's not going to require any storage of data or something like that right now. So the issues and bugs we have right now, the click functionality not properly flagging cells is a really big one, because that's really important, because that's pretty much the whole game. If that's not working, then the Minesweeper game is not working. And then you have a little bit lesser priorities in the color not properly showing up in the game cells, and then the game board array not displaying cells in proper order. And then some lastly information, you have the GitHub information, which showcases the team workflow in GitHub, as you can see here, from 1 through 4. And then there's a diagram right here. And required reports and glossary, we don't have anything to deal with that at this moment. So moving on to the actual Minesweeper game, the baseline that we have right now. As we go into Eclipse right here, you can see the 4 classes: the main, game board, game, and cell class. The main runs that game.play game function. The game board is where the game's created. The game will contain the difficulty, level settings, and actually have the function that will run the game. It will call the game board class so that it appears when you run the game. The cell class is where the mines and numbers will be created to function in the game. So I'm going to show the actual project running right now. I'm going to click here, and it may take a second to pop up as Eclipse takes its slow time. Okay, here we go. And we have the squares here, 5 by 5. And as I click this one, mine popped up. Click this one, a number pops up. Another number, and so on and so forth. Later on, we will add the game will end function and stuff like that to the game, but this is the baseline that has been created for this sprint.